wasn't just a week from the interview that you guys chased him out of Nebraska, but that is the rumor on the boards. How did we get to this point that a guy that basically has a trophy case in North Stadium, loved the place, had a momentum going? How did we get to this point that his momentum is taking him all the way to College Station, Texas?
I think it's complex. I don't think I'm not going to sum it up in two sentences. I think that, Nebraska has a leadership challenge right now in its upper level administration. We all know that. There's no president.
Mm-hmm.
There's no president, even as this, I'm going to call it a $600 million Memorial Stadium project is, trying to lurch forward. Trev, there was a leadership structure in place that was to Trev's liking that folded up when Ted Carter left for Ohio State. I'm sure that has. I don't want to talk in absolutes here because we haven't heard anything from Trev.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some things that are very obvious, and you can even glean some of this from his comments, not only on the video to what you're referring to, the interview he did with Husker Online, where he referenced a level of frustration about not having a president. So that's not, I'm not just pulling that out of the air. He expressed frustration that there's no president in place. Then there's also, I think, Trev is ambitious. I've never looked at Trev as someone, I don't know about never. I think in July of 2021, I was kind of swept up during this press conference and thought this might be someone who's here for 15 years. As time went on, it becomes very clear he's a very ambitious person.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has designs on bigger roles than maybe an AD, just an AD. So he's 53, so he has time. We know that he was interested in being the head of the College Football Playoff Committee chairman. So there's things like that. So a lot of it does make sense to me. What's hard to reconcile is that he was only here for 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's if it was, maybe even 4 years, it'd be easier to reconcile.
It's interesting on that point about maybe having your eyes on bigger career paths, because I kind of went there yesterday as well. And with college football getting into a lot of new territory when it comes to what this product is going to look like and how the power brokers are going to be situated, is there a feeling that maybe there's more to the Texas A&M gig than meets the eye as far as how that could position you if, say, in 5 or 6 years, there is an opportunity to have even a stronger role when it comes to the new look college football, whether conference or a new type of committee that Texas A&M, a successful run at Texas A&M, could position Trev better than it would at Nebraska?
Well, yeah, and that his resume now would have not only experience as a Big Ten AD, but experience as an SEC AD. It's really an amazing resume he's building. It's not a perfect resume, but he doesn't have a ton of, big time athletic director experience.
Mm-hmm.
But he's about to get more. So he's kind of taking care of that part. His resume, just going back to, an ESPN analyst commentator, it's an extraordinary resume for a role like you're suggesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's as I said, I think there's a very definite possibility that that's what this is somewhat about. I think you always, if that's what if he has designs on that sort of thing, he also understands that he has to be a good AD. And he has to serve as an AD and not necessarily, not always with an eye towards something else, but he has to serve student athletes. That's what he has to do. That's his job. But he's good at it. That's and I think that's why a lot of this hurts Nebraska fans, because he was good at his job here. He did a good job. It wasn't a home run, but it was good. And that's a lot of, I think we saw that he was a very capable AD, and he was only here for 2.5 years. Those things, and he's Trev Alberts. He's very much a Husker, and that's why it's all sort of hard to fathom.
So I love the word you used to describe him because you're spot on with the word ambitious. Here in Omaha, he got 2 major projects done, and he was already under the phase 3, which was going to basically have an athletic facility for all of athletics at Omaha so they could get him out of Sapp Fieldhouse. He then takes on the most ambitious project in the history of Nebraska athletics. And the rollout was a little clunky. The response, as I have mentioned many times this morning, was not overwhelming.
No.
That's and you're right, because you've added the years as this goes on. It's going to end up being a $600 million project. Sip, where does that stand? I mean, that stadium needs some love, but that's a huge project. And now you don't have a president, and more so, you don't have the guy that was his vision to put together sitting in the power chair. Next person comes in. What do you think is the status like moving down the road of the stadium project?
It's a really hard thing to wrap your head around. Let's put it this way. I think that project was going to be difficult, challenging to get done with Trev in place. Now, without him, I just think it gets even tougher. And some of that's dependent on who his successor is. Again, though, you go back to this president vacancy. I think there was some. I know I'm not. I shouldn't say I think, because he expressed it on our video. There's a level of frustration of trying to get this project rolling without a president. I mean, that's a key leadership position, obviously. So, we're in a bit of a fix again. It feels like I've said that so many times in the last 15, 20 years. We're in a fix. This fix feels worse. Like I have this attitude usually. I'm a bit of a Pollyanna, probably overly optimistic about most things. And I always have the thought, okay, this is just an administrator. They'll put a very good administrator in that role. And they'll hire a good president. Problem is, we've seen it in Nebraska that it doesn't always happen, and we've seen it. We've sized it up. We've talked about it at length. We know that there's been some very bad AD hires here. There's been some very poor leadership at the very top of the university as it relates to athletics, at least, and we're paying the price. We keep paying the price, and it feels like it's happening again. Now the question becomes, how much resiliency does that place have?
Right.
Yeah.
How resilient is it? How resilient is it? Because I think that's become the question in my mind. How resilient is it? Because it needs to be really resilient.